Well, speaking of Mercury retrograde tragedies, I just recorded a 40-minute video about each sign and how the retrograde might affect that sign. And I went to stop it, and somehow halfway through it stopped recording. So here we are again. There is nothing worse in video world than having to redo a video that you just did start to finish. So, although maybe this is just a time for me to rework it and be less wordy, because that I was kind of wordy in the other one. Most of you that already have, listened to me know that already. But this was just going to be a very short, like, little snippet for each sign about how the retrograde might affect your energy and something that might help. I'm pulling the help cards from this, and I just saved the cards and went back and found the ones for each sign. So I'm going to use the ones I pulled initially because I think they were really helpful. But it is a dream decoder deck that I bought at a Goodwill recently, and you never find stuff like that at Goodwill. So I think dream interpretation can be, it's so varied that I don't usually have books and card decks about that, but I'm using this more as an oracle deck for help this time. So it's helpful to look at your sun, moon, and rising sign if you're interested. Usually our ascendant or the rising sign is probably the most impactful, but you take what you want from it. You're welcome to listen to all the signs. So this is just brief. We're going to start with Aries. The way that the Mercury retrograde can affect Aries is calendar management and creative inspiration. And I am pulling that list from a different source because it was succinct. And sometimes I get to be really wordy, so I liked the headings that came with that. So calendar management kind of speaks for itself. You may find that during the month of August, you're looking at either things coming up that you need to note on a calendar, or maybe you need a new calendar system. A lot of people use the alerts and things, the calendar on their phone. You may want something more tangible. You may be getting a new planner. It is back to school time, so it's not so unusual to think that we might be starting off the school calendar year with a new planner, but there may be quite a bit of focus on calendar implementation and things like that. You may also just be adding new habits, like maybe you want to remember more birthdays in the next year, so you're going to be noting things ahead of time. You could also be potentially adding a new, I don't know, any way of tracking anything, moon cycles or your calorie count or anything like that. A calendar could be utilized in a good way that way. So that may come into play. Creative inspiration. This is kind of interesting because creative inspiration, it could be one of those times where you might have a lot of ideas. You might be very inspired, or it could be the opposite where you feel like so uninspired. So if you're feeling a lot of inspiration, know that August may be a time where you could write down those ideas. You might want to grab a journal. You might want to grab a stack of Post-it notes, napkins, anything where you can get your ideas down on paper before you lose them. It's not necessarily the best time to try to do all those ideas, though. There's a very good chance you're going to run out of energy to do them all. So to me, I just got this idea that if you're very inspired, definitely take time and figure out a system to get those ideas down, because I think some of them could be very practical and useful in the coming year. And then if you're not feeling inspired at all, if you have hit some wall, try something different. And the card that I pulled really speaks to that. It's called Moving Forward. So it really talks about keep your eye on the future, which definitely goes to the calendar thinking. But the first line of this card is walking in a dream, like any other form of travel, is a symbol of discoveries you're making as you move forward. So I'm taking this as a piece of advice to mean get out, take a walk, find some kind of physical movement forward, even if it's just walking on a treadmill or riding a bicycle or taking a walk. Physically moving forward could bring about a great deal of creative inspiration in what you see around you. It could just be getting oxygen flowing, but definitely forward physical activity could be a key for you for the month of August, in terms of getting the creative juices flowing. So for Taurus, romantic endeavors and family dynamics. Romantic endeavors. You could find yourself, it's a joke, not a joke, but I mean, it's kind of a joke among tarot readers and astrologists that during a Mercury retrograde, you may have people from your past come back. Exes might start thinking about you, you may hear from them. That's not just Taurus individuals, that's everybody. But with it coming up as being something that will affect you, you may be the one that is inspired to reach out to someone that you haven't talked to in a long time. And it could be romantic. It doesn't have to be. Maybe you decide that you want another try with someone that you've had before, or there could be some kind of conflict even in your romantic endeavors because of doing the same thing over and over or pushing too hard. So that Mercury retrograde energy of backing off could definitely have an impact that way. So that's good. If you've been out in the dating world or you've been trying to meet new friends, it may be a time just to stop trying, like ease up just a bit. In terms of family dynamics, it could be a lot here. You could be changing how you relate to people. If there's someone you haven't talked to in your family in a long time, you could hear a song and, it could, you could think about them suddenly and want to reach out. And then I pulled the card, which I loved because out of that whole big deck to pull the bird card, me pulling the bird card was awesome. But it talks about birds. A bird or flock of birds is generally a positive sign, a symbol of freedom and joy as your hopes and aspirations take flight. I like this, but I also really saw it strongly as birds could be like symbols for you this month, whether it's feathers or pictures of birds or bird videos or literal birds around you. I would be inclined to tell you to take that to heart as a symbol from someone that has passed over and take that as a message, like that somebody is thinking about you, somebody's trying to let you know that they're with you. Birds are a really common symbol for that, but for that to come up out of that whole huge stack of cards, and the idea that family dynamics are going to be at play here, you may have passed over loved ones reaching out. It could be very inspiring too. You may have a reason to reach out to someone in regards to birds for some reason. And I say that being a lady that's in the bird business, with my glass birds. So just know the birds are going to be one of the symbols for you for the month. And if you feel that urge to reach out, definitely do. Okay, for Gemini, domestic decorums and communication skills. Those things, Mercury is the planet of communication and Geminis are great communicators. So for that to be like something that it will be affected means be very careful how you speak. And you may be pushed a little bit this month to say things that you haven't known how to say, or you might be inspired to reach out and ask questions, because the card that I pulled here is paralysis. Now this card is the Dream Dictionary card. So it's talking about that feeling, that you can't move when you're first starting to fall asleep. But it really is reminiscent of the Eight of Swords in the tarot deck, which is a card of like mental entrapment. It's thinking you're stuck, being too afraid to move forward, thinking that there aren't options, but it's all about like the internal self. So communication, asking questions. If you feel like you're stuck in a way, ask questions, reach out, get more information. Don't be afraid to like send an email to ask about something, to get your answers, because that will help more than anything. It will help make you feel like you're not stuck. So the words on this card is dreams in which you can't move or speak can cause great anxiety. And that's what we're trying to ward off here. So clear communications and answers can help this month with anxiety. In terms of domestic decorum, decorum here makes me think of how you relate to your more domestic environment versus like professional environment. So how you speak, how you relate to individuals, how you feel in your environment. You may need to do some talking about it. If there are changes that you want to make to your home or to, anything about your yard, it would be a good time to actually talk about it, verbalize what's been going on in your head about it. Toss around ideas. You never know who else that you're talking to brings great ideas to the table, and that's can be get the ball rolling. So to me, I think this is a time to talk about your home life. And you definitely, I'm the anxiety here with this card, I like it because there is a clear answer this month in terms of how you get around this paralysis feeling is communicating, getting answers, talking to other people, finding out what other people are going through. If you need to go to a store, find out what time they close. It's getting more information through communication. Okay, Cancer, friendships and financial stability. This was an interesting one. I'm going to start with the card because the card is disasters. And if you look at that card, there's all kinds of things that could happen. It says, dreaming of any kind of disaster, whether natural, like an earthquake, flood, or fire, or man-made, like an explosion, bomb, or an accident, can be extremely unsettling. All right, so in the realm of friendships and financial stability, you may be panicking. You may find yourself worrying about things in the future. I just keep hearing in my head the what if scenario. So two things with this. Friendships, you may need to reach out. You may feel the urge to reach out and connect with people. And, it could alleviate some of this. The other thing is some people may reach out to you, and it would be really helpful because you're such an empathetic sign to understand and not take on, consciously be aware of how easy it is to take on other people's worries, other people's disasters, the world's disasters. Like just looking at the news alone can inspire a lot of nervous energy and not being able to sleep and worry that doesn't really belong to you. Sure, as a human, we all are dealing with this collectively, but not every minute and not every day. And so taking it all on can really weigh you down. This might be a month to just be aware of your own emotional boundaries in terms of being there for your friends, leaning into your friends when you need it, but learning how to be there without taking on the burden. And then financial stability. To avoid the what if and the disasters, this is simply like talking about planning for the future. Have yourself an emergency fund. Start to work through and talk about the what ifs. Bring in other people to talk about you or to talk about with you so that you can plan for that rainy day, so that you can go over a lot of options for the what if. It's really also just be on guard against the doomsday feeling and thinking. That's not going to be really helpful this month. Okay, for Leo, budgeting and personal identity. I knew the personal identity thing was going to come up because Mercury is retrograding in the second half of August in Leo. So this is definitely watch your own ego, watch your projections, and watch your reactions to things, because it's going to come across, however you behave, it's going to come across in a very exaggerated manner, and that's what people are going to see. So, there's a great deal of melodrama and soap opera associated with this Mercury retrograde. So definitely be very conscious of, how you're projecting who you really are. So, if I don't know how to say that, just know that it's going to be blown up into something bigger. And so be very conscious of, well, who are you? What is your identity that you're putting out there in response to the world? And budgeting kind of speaks for itself. You may have had things that have changed in the last few months, or that will change in the coming months. So there may be just an added focus on changing up budgets. I think the example I used before the thing cut off was this is a great time that to reevaluate your subscriptions. If you're paying for things that you're not using, rather than just let it go on and pay for a whole year, cut it now. Like if you're conscious and you're looking at where your money's going, you could say, oh, okay, I don't use that anymore, and save yourself a whole lot of money. The card that came is accidents. And I love this card. I mean, the dream dictionary card, sometimes we have dreams that are scary, right? And this one may kind of come across that way. It says dreams that feature accidents, perhaps in a car, plane, or train, simply tripping up or falling over, are an obvious warning to be alert to potential danger. So definitely keep safety, on your mind, and pay attention to your surroundings in terms of handrails and things like that. But mainly what I saw was the cubist painting nude descending a staircase. There's great movement in this card, and I just like it. Now, and from the budgeting standpoint, what I thought of was that snowball effect of, if you're not careful now, like rework the budget now, get rid of subscriptions you're not using now, so that they don't snowball into much bigger payments for something that you don't use. So it's like, rather than having to tumble all the way down the stairs, it's stopping, right? Stopping something before it gets worse. So I kind of like this from that budgeting standpoint. I don't think it's such a negative thing about danger, but I think it's more of a snowball thing with your money and preparing. So I hope that helps. So Virgo, confidence and intuition are areas where this could affect your life. Confidence-wise, since Mercury retrograde is starting in Virgo, and you may want to be on guard against perfectionism to the point where you start to feel badly about yourself when you can't control and do things to the expectation that you set. There's a lot going on that's brand new. For instance, take school. Right? Not everyone is in their right place on the first day of school. Buses are late. Teachers don't know everyone's name yet. Nobody knows where to go yet. So if we strive for perfection this month, it could be detrimental to your own confidence, because you might take that on as something that you weren't able to accomplish, when that's not really the right expectation to hold right now. So it's just about being on guard for that obsessive tendency. Don't let your need for perfection or the expectation for things to be right grow to such an extent that you begin to beat up on yourself. Because there's so much going on right now. It is a time of confusion. It is a little bit of a time of chaos, and that has really no reflection on you. So be sure to stay grounded and keep your expectations really manageable, so that your belief in your own self doesn't waver right now. There's no reason for it to be. And intuition wise, I kind of get a different message for that. There may be something that happens or a thought that comes across in August where you want to learn to listen to your intuition a little more. You may be very curious about what is intuition. What is that versus your own thoughts or what's going on around you? So I really get the feeling like this may be a time where you may want to go back and revisit an old practice or something that you used to do, or something that reestablishes a connection with your own intuition. If you were a journal writer and you haven't written in your journal for a long time, but that really makes you feel like you know yourself, it would be a good time to go back to that. Now it's interesting because the card I pulled is religious and spiritual figures. So I just love this. Like when you pull cards that are so appropriate. A spiritual leader such as Jesus, the Buddha, or Muhammad, or an anonymous priest or nun, or a symbol such as an angel, cross, star, or crescent moon, probably indicates moral or spiritual issues in your life. Well, that kind of is your intuition, the connection. So you may actually want to start going back to church, or again, revisiting an old practice that made you feel in touch. You may want to talk to somebody that you feel like has a good handle on their intuition. to learn more. But it would be a great time to do whatever it takes in terms of those kinds of practices to kind of reconnect with yourself. I like that. I like that a lot. So for Libra, emotional well-being and social media connections could be at play. Now, emotional well-being, the first time around, what I heard was like kind of a circle. Like there is a circle or a cycle that you could become very aware of. And it might have already happened like earlier this summer or earlier this year. But you're very aware of things that make you happy, people when they're around that you feel good around. It's not going to go like under the radar. You're not going to be like just numb to that or not paying attention. You will know. Like there's something about your own well-being that I want to say you're going to break a cycle. And you probably already have started it, but you may see the effects of how it's beneficial in your life, in your own self, because you've started doing something differently for your own self and your own emotions. So I know that was really wordy. If you are in a place that makes you feel really great, you may want to go to that place more. If you are constantly, like say you go in and I'm trying to think of a good example. Say you go into a restaurant and there's a particular waitress that never makes you feel good about what you order. Okay, say that there is this rude waitress that has to comment on what you order. You realize that, and next time you go in, you have begun not sitting in her section. It can be those kinds of small things that creep into your awareness that, oh yeah, when I sit in her section, I actually feel bad about the food I'm eating. So I'm just not going to sit in her section anymore. I'm going to go where I feel good. There's a lot of that going on for you, I feel like, right now. Now, social media wise, I don't know. You may want to revamp how you do social media. You may have more contacts come in. You may get a surge of friends that have never been on social media that join, and so you add to your friends list that way. You may reevaluate the amount of time that you spend on social media or update your profile picture. Things like that could definitely play in. The card that came out is the Castle card. Castle, ancient buildings, and tombs. This is a castle, like a home, can be interpreted as your ego or your inner world. And that really just goes to the well-being. Now, your ego would be more of like what you project on social media. So you may want to, if you have people that you don't like following them on social media, reading their posts just makes you feel bad, it may be a really great time to go through and just get rid of things that don't make you feel good. It's that kind of thing where this structure, in this case, is talking about your inner world. You're very focused on it. And the things that you do daily affect your insides. That's what you're changing. Those are the cycles that you're breaking. So I love that. I think that's great. So Scorpio, networking and professional pursuits. Okay, networking. The example that came to mind in the prior video before I got cut off was it would be a good time to go back through your old Rolodex or your stack of business cards that you keep stuck in a drawer. If you have a problem right now, there's a very good chance that someone that you've encountered before has the solution. If you have to have a tree cut down out of your yard, maybe you have an old business card from when your neighbor had a tree cut down. So definitely when you think through the issues that you're having and you just don't know what to do about something, go back through your Rolodex. There's something in the networking here of someone that you already know that can help with a solution there. I really like that. So there may be a revisiting of network connections somehow that could prove to be really helpful. It's also a great time to understand the network that you belong to. And I don't really know what that means because that just kind of came out of my mouth just suddenly. Like that was not in the other one. But there is this element of you are who you hang with that may need to be looked at. And professional pursuits. All right. This is a great time for expanding and broadening your mind in terms of brainstorming professional ideas. So I like that. That immediately came to mind of who, really just working the ideas on how to grow your professional life. Brainstorming, that kept coming through. Now the card that came up is running late. So this could be just a nice easy caution about business wise, to allow plenty of time in between appointments, because appointments might run long, clients might be late. You might want to set extra alarms so that you're not late. It does have to do with a time thing though. So have patience this month if everyone else doesn't seem to be on your schedule, because there's a lot of chaos going on. It's also time to rework timing. Because school started, there's more traffic, there's summer road projects still going. So be aware that things could not be running according to schedule, and just try to have some patience with that. Sagittarius, public perception and philosophical intrigues. This one was kind of interesting to me, based on the card that came up with this. So I'm going to start with the card, but the card is animals. Animals are a symbol of primal instincts and urges. That really speaks to me of kind of like possibly repressed things. So I don't know if you're going to have some time this month to explore things that you have been repressing in terms of your natural urges for things, your natural inclinations. And it can be sexual, but that's not really where I'm sticking with this. It's just our nature. Who are we at the core, and how can we bring more of that into our life? Public perception. This could be a lot of different things. You may be reworking your image. You may be adding to your professional repertoire, and you need to let people know that you're adding more services, that you're able to do more. If you've been doing a very certain thing a certain way and people know you by that, maybe you're kind of changing that up. There's something about becoming very aware or staying aware of how you're perceived publicly. So it could be as simple as wanting a new hairdo, wanting people to see you in a different light. In my case, I do have quite a bit of Sagittarius in my chart, so that hits me in the area of the work realm of, I just combined 3 websites into one. So now all of the services I offer, they're just going to be on one platform. And that's kind of a change in how I've usually had 3 individual audiences that I've tried to target. And I've worked to some degree to keep certain ones separate. And now I would rather just be known kind of for the jack of all trades that I am. So how you're perceived, that'll be kind of interesting. Now the animal thing, this came up also because animals, you may be getting a new pet. In some way, pets or animals could be very helpful. Studying the nature of animals could be really helpful, especially in that philosophical intrigues part. There's a broadening here of what you think life is about. And I can't go into it right now because what's coming to mind, right, is so full-bodied. It's like it's just dying to speak. And it's like not being afraid to go down the rabbit hole. You don't have to believe everything you hear, but it's a great time to absorb different cultures, different species. I don't know, if you have a minute to examine, say you're taking a walk and you see ants, let yourself go down that rabbit hole of how ants socially work. You never know where inspiration is going to come from when you push the boundaries of what you know and what your philosophy about life is. There's something really good, I think, that can come from broadening your philosophy, at least to just take it in. It doesn't mean you have to hang on to it. It's like listening to tarot readings. Just the idea of listening to what it's about doesn't mean you have to take it on as your own or that's the way you think, but it is broadening a perspective in some way that will help. Especially in August. And I think it's going to be for the future. There's something coming, I think, that your broadened awareness, or the idea that you have other things kind of that you're thinking through, that it could be very helpful. Okay, Capricorn, travel plans and emotional connections. The travel plans are probably one of the more straightforward Mercury retrograde things. Just be go into any travel with a lot of patience. Have alternative plans. Be ready for delays. Write your lists out of things that you need to pack and take with you. Because that is, again, a very straightforward kind of Mercury retrograde thing, and you may want things to be very efficient. Please know during this month they're just not going to be. And if you can plan accordingly and allow yourself some grace, allow yourself a few extra options, things will go much smoother. In terms of emotional connections, I think that, clearly with it being the word connections, this has something to do with you and someone you're emotionally bonded to or connected to. You may hear a song that causes you to think about someone else, or you may be working something that has to do with someone you care about. And the card I pulled for you was Castles, like Libra got. But what came to mind was not the inner life that the Libras got. This had to do with, I was really, really noticing the castle walls. And it felt much more of a protective energy. So I don't know if this has to do with someone else's home, where they're living, or you protecting somebody that you care about in some way. There may be something that you're reworking for someone else's protection. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't really know what to say about it. Your emotional connections, so I just feel a really heavy, like in a good way, a protective energy. Mercury retrograde for Aquarius, psychological breakthroughs and relationship dynamics. All right, I had this big spiel for Aquarius in the other video that didn't record. From the psychological breakthroughs, Aquarius energy, what that energy is all about anyway, is seeing the forest for the trees. All right, Aquarians definitely, that energy can see the trees, but they're really good at zoning out, like away from everything and seeing the whole broad picture. All right, they are a sign of seeing all of humanity. Right, they see the picture, and it's really good. I like that energy. With this coming up as a retrograde thing to focus on, there may be something that you have butted up against for a while. Right, you may be right in front of one of those trees. And there's something that may cause you to step back. Maybe you have to. I keep hearing have to. So it might not be like your choice, but you may have to step back for something. And when you do, you will get your answer. That you will zone out, see the big picture, see the problem. It's almost like you've been up close and personal to be able to act in that natural Aquarian fashion, which sometimes life just does that, right? It takes us out of our element. And, you've been knocking on the one door, and nobody's answering, and you're wondering, you were supposed to meet somebody here at this house. You've been knocking for half an hour, no one's answering. But when you step away from the street and you go back and get in your car and you look up, you see that you were knocking on the wrong door. Right? So it's that kind of energy. The step back will cause the breakthrough. I like that. Be on the lookout for it. That seemed like a prediction more than a piece of help. And then relationship dynamics, it could be in that realm. Maybe you've been dealing with someone a very particular way and it hasn't worked, right? You just cannot make something work. But when you step back to see the bigger picture, you see exactly something you didn't see before, and you know the way to make it work. It doesn't have to be about that, but those seem to be blending together to me. Relationship dynamics may also be changing. All right. If your role in a position or at home or something is changing, be ready to talk it out and to work through that kind of energy of shifting a little bit. Now, the card that came out is school. So this makes a lot of sense. We're right at the beginning of school time and stuff. But what I like is that you may have to go back, and maybe you're going back to school for something. It could be very literal, but it could just be that you're learning something new. If you are having trouble with another person, learning more about them can be the way to get the breakthrough that you need so that the dynamic changes to a positive one. So that would be learning something. Dreams of being a pupil at school or some other place of learning usually relate to lessons you need to learn in your waking life, perhaps a basic principle or a skill that you have forgotten. So I like this. I think you're going to learn something new. I think that school card especially has to do with learning about someone else. But the breakthrough could also be maybe you need to go back and learn something. You know, there's something out there that you need to go get your skills up to par on. So I like it. I think it's positive. And then finally, Pisces, work-life balance and daily routines. So this is a pretty straightforward one also. The work-life balance. If something has been out of whack, you're working too hard, it's now time to think about adjusting that, building more time in for yourself, more time for rest, that kind of thing. More time for pleasure, things that are not necessarily work. And then daily routines can have to do with anything. It's just establishing new routines. If you are wanting to take vitamins every day, if you want to build in workout schedule, if you want to get more hours of sleep, new habits. I think the standard saying is that it takes 3 weeks for a new habit to, get ingrained enough to stick. So that would be a great time during Mercury retrograde to really take stock of what your daily life is like. Like, don't just go through it numbly or like a zombie. Don't just go through your life blindly. Pay attention to where your time goes and what you're doing with your time. And if that means keeping track of your calories or writing out meal plans, consciously changing habits. I like it. The card that came with that is Apocalypse. So I'm not laughing at the bomb, but I am laughing at the idea that things could change. So I like this. Both the daily habits, you can cause a massive shift in your life. Now this Apocalypse card is very akin to the Tower card in Tarot, where a situation is completely leveled. And when I say that, it's not always, some people are really afraid of that. And generally it's something that wasn't going to last anyway. So Tower energy or Apocalypse energy could be in that if your health is become a concern, and say you want to lose weight, you change your habits to change your weight. You stop doing something the old way and you begin doing something the new way. Now, that can come in two things. You either want to create this change or you're trying to stave off an even worse change. So take this card in terms of the work-life balance. All right. If you don't create the change now to make work and your real life balance, right? There has to be time for yourself. There has to be time for pleasure. There has to be time for rest. If you continue to work really, really hard and that's all your focus is, you will experience burnout, and burnout will cause you to not do any work. So that would be this card. So this card is kind of both a warning, but also an encouragement that you can totally change your life through the practice of better habits and better balance. So I happen to think this is about getting, which was the other sign that I felt like was kind of a prediction thing, was that Scorpio or Sag or something. I feel like that there is something good coming that you need to create better habits for now, so that that new thing, you can make the most of it when it comes. It could be a new job. It could be a new home. It could be anything, but you want to kind of prepare for it before it gets here. So I hope that helps. That was just a very quick little snippet for each sign going into August here. If you have any questions or you want a little follow-up or want to talk about this any further, just let me know. Comment below or email me. Talk to you later. Bye.